Hello and welcome to this fourth and concluding video in my series on the ACT matrix. In the first three videos I provided a pretty straightforward explanation and orientation to the ACT matrix and its usefulness. In this video I'm going to stretch a little further afield into some more speculative territory. I got inspired a few months ago to put two matrices together when I was facilitating groups at a mental health hospital here in southern Vermont, and there was request for a group on the theme of codependency. And initially I was kind of reluctant to pick up that theme because it's, codependency, it's not a precise term. It has a lot of stereotypical connotations to it. But then as I got to thinking about it, it's such a common occurrence for two people to get locked into painful, reinforcing patterns of behavior that are really hard to get unstuck from. And I thought, I wonder. And this light bulb kind of went off in my head, and I put one matrix above the other. And I'm going to show you where I went with that. So let's give it a shot here. So I'm going to assume that you're already familiar with the ACT matrix and what the four quadrants are about. I'm not going to review that. If you want to get caught up with that, you can review the first three videos of the series or check out many of the other resources that are available in books and on video on the ACT matrix. So I'm going to jump right in here with, let's say there's person A and person B. And person A has some unwanted, painful thoughts and feelings, and the natural inclination to engage in some avoidance and control behaviors that give short-term relief, or at least some kind of short-term change to that inner experience of painful thoughts and feelings. Of course, in the long run, oftentimes those avoidance and control behaviors tend to create more pain in the long run, hence getting into an individual stuck pattern that way. And, in a relationship between two people, chances are the other person also has their stuff going on of a similar dynamic. But these two folks are in relationship, and the avoidance and control behaviors of one person are noticeable to the other person. In fact, when person A is engaging in these behaviors to avoid or control distress, oftentimes in ways that are harmful in the long run, it can also very well bring up painful thoughts and feelings for person B. Matches up with our lived experience? Okay. And that might trigger that person to engage in some behaviors. Maybe towards the person A. And so the avoidance and control behaviors of person B then become input, something that person A experiences, and that might bring up some painful feelings for person A. Which might prompt another round of reactive behavior, prompting more painful thoughts and feelings for person B, prompting more behaviors of reactivity, prompting even more. This seems to be a pretty frequent occurrence, and with many different flavors of behavior. Everything from substance abuse to anger behavior to passive-aggressive behavior to manipulative behaviors to you name it, of what can go on between two people. So getting stuck in these patterns, it happens pretty frequently. And we can appreciate how difficult it can be to break the pattern. For example, suppose person A comes to this place of noticing that this pattern is going on, and that this pattern is not likely to change by increasing the volume knob on this, by either yelling louder, for example, or by doing the silent treatment even more silent, for example, that if that person A comes to this noticing place and steps back and says, oh my, look at this pattern that we're engaged in here. That's pretty painful. What do I care about? What might I do that's different, that might break the pattern here? And maybe there's some motivation for person A to take some action based on their values. And then the big question mark shows up. How will that action be received by the other? Big question mark. If this person A does something to break the pattern, acting on their values, the big question, where is it going to land for person B? Will it land in the values camp? Will person B say, oh wow, thank you, you've just done something to break the pattern. I'm so glad, I'm with you. Let me join you there. Maybe. It's also possible that person B might have a different interpretation of that action and take it as something that is strange, frightening in some way, unfamiliar, maybe it brings up distrust, maybe it taps into some other history that breaking out of the familiar can be disconcerting, and in that state of uncertainty, they could take it into, as well-intentioned as person A is, it's possible that person B will take that in and interpret it in a way that is prompting of reactive behavior. Person A probably knows person B well enough to know that, ooh, if I break this pattern, person B might, who knows what's going to happen. And that uncertainty can also feed another round of doubt, uncertainty, and reactive behaviors. So, maybe we can appreciate this this difficulty with compassion, and also with some kind of, hard-headed realism that breaking the patterns is not risk-free. Don't know how the other person's going to receive it. And then again, the question is, so what if either of these people choose not to break the pattern? Then it could be that, as they say, the devil we know is preferable to the devil we don't know. At least we know what the deal is here. There might even be a certain comfort in that. does the pain of that mutually reinforcing cycle provide enough motivation to engage in some willingness to try something different? It's a big question. This might sound kind of grim, and I get that, and at the same time, to come back again to that question of maybe it's worth the experiment. Maybe it's worth the experiment to see what would happen. Maybe it's worth the experiment. Even with that doubt, even with not knowing how the other person is going to respond, to take that action and see where it lands. And maybe act on your values again. Because the first time it might be received with distrust. But maybe a person can find the motivation to work on this relationship in a way that says, I'm going to be the pattern breaker here. I'm going to be the one that gives this a try, gives it the best shot, and see how person B responds. It's a brave move. It takes, I have great admiration for people that are willing to be the first person to make that move to break a pattern. So I hope that this version of a double matrix here can both illuminate how sticky the stuck patterns can get for people, and also bring some kind of realism to the work that it takes to break a pattern and engage in an ongoing pattern of valued action, maybe because it's intrinsically satisfying to start with, because it feels right, in an experiment that maybe person B will join you there. So, where this double matrix seems to really bear fruit is that when people bring their actual lived experience to it, when they say, you know, when I do this and my partner does that, then I do this. When you get into the fine-grained details of it, some more insights and more motivation can start emerging, because people start to catch on that this doesn't fix itself. And it's hard. And maybe it's worth it. So give it a try. And if you find some other insights or variations on this, I'm curious to see what further development might happen with it. I feel like I'm kind of in the formation phase of working with the actor matrix this way. And in the spirit of sharing and collaborating, here it is, go for it. So this concludes this series on the ACT matrix. I hope you found it useful, and thanks again for your attention.